What's up, guys? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded. I am your wondrous and luminous host, the Lore Reloaded. My name is also James, your lore master. I am here for all of your entertainment needs. If you've been here before, you're watching this video on demand, you know exactly how this is about to work. I'm going to throw a couple of things out at you. Of course, always check me out at twitter.com/lore reloaded. Should anything happen to this channel or anything great like the end of the world or a way to win $1 million or anything like that, definitely go to twitter.com/lore reloaded. There's a special deal. If you go and do it tonight specifically, you will be able to follow me for absolutely free, and that is a limited time offer. Of course, if you like hanging out, you like playing games, things like that, go to twitch.tv/lore reloaded, and most nights that I'm not here, I'll be playing games over there. Just a ton of fun. Last but not least, next month I will be doing a fun little event where you guys will get to vote on what I will be doing for the rest of the year when it comes to a new series. So will it be Babylon 5? Will it be, I don't know, Battlestar Galactica? You guys will get to vote. I'll tell you more about that when it comes up. But today is a special day because I will be talking with Captain George. You can check Captain George out at youtube.com/Captain George. He's actually on the line with me. How you doing, sir?
I am doing very good.
Living the dream. Of course, we got Anti-Trekker here, Joshua Lewandowski, Hybrid Jack, Mario, Josh Street, 1000 Nod, who is Frist. Not first, but Frist. We also got the Anti-Trekker, of course. Captain George in the house. He's even talking to me, and he's putting it here. Enderman of Doom. We got Joshua. Oh, I already said that. We got Lobster 11 too. How fun is that? How fun is that? So let's just get into it. And before we do that, though, Micah Leith, I am excited for Sojourn as well. Should be coming out pretty shortly. If you guys haven't checked that out, go to Space Dock. They're doing their own special YouTube series, which I'm actually looking very much forward to, and I think will be a lot of fun. So tonight we'll be talking about the fall of the good guys, all of them being slavers. This originally was on a topic we were doing beforehand where we discussed the clones during the Clone Wars, as well as the droids. And we were also queuing that back to how the Federation and Starfleet was okay with the Dominion until the Dominion wanted to take them over, even though the Dominion has their own slave race itself. And of course, Captain George, being the awesome person he is when it comes to putting together documents and doing videos, because if you go to his channel, you'll see that he does a lot of lore and stuff like that. He's put together an entire document for whatever we're going to talk about. And offered for me to see it. I have not seen it, in fact, even though he did all of this work for me, because I wanted to just wanted to do it live, as a great man once said. So let's just get down into it. Now, if my understanding is correct, though, you wanted to focus more on the Clone Wars specifically. Is that right?
Yeah, because I think that's when we have a large majority of the good guys, like Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, Yoda, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Kit Fisto, etc.
Sure, and I mean, it's not just them, though. Going off of what Anti-Trekker said, in theory, you could go into the original trilogy with Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan was there too, of course, Han Solo, all being willing to be okay with a secondary slave race or secondary citizens when it comes to the droids themselves. So I know we had talked about this off air, and this is a good launching point. And then, of course, if anybody wants to talk about it, we can get more into it. But one of the things that was very interesting to me during the Clone Wars was the lack of care for the clones. And I think you even see that in the movies, ultimately, though they tried to retcon Anakin a little bit to care about the clones, even though ultimately he would go on to not care about them even before he became Vader. But one of the most telling for me was when Ahsoka, who is my favorite character in all of Star Wars, when she specifically went out of her, well, let me say this. There was an episode, and what was the episode called again? Do you remember?
Brain Invaders.
Brain Invaders. And so during this episode, Barriss and Ahsoka had to defend themselves against the clones. The clones turned against them for various reasons. And, of course, after killing at least one clone, I thought they killed more, but at least one clone, they talked about how the clone had been her friend or whatnot. But what gets me is the tone and how dismissive they were. And I think that's actually pretty telling to me, because while she did say, well, he was my friend and everything, it was with a distinct lack of concern or care. And I think you see that throughout. And another good example, I think, would be, what was it, Luminara, who when she was very dispassionate about almost anything she did. But what are your thoughts on that?
What are my thoughts on how?
Yeah, I mean, if you have any thoughts to expand on.
I felt like Anakin, despite, like you said, in movies not really caring, in the Clone Wars he truly cared for his soldiers. He got to know his men like Rex, Appo, Kix, and all of them. He got to understand them, he got to hang out with them, and when something went wrong with them, he actually cared enough to actually show up. Like when Fives was being hunted down by the when he was drugged, that is, when he discovered Order 66, he was willing to meet with Fives. But if you look at Jedi similar to like Luminara Unduli, or in this case, for an example, Jedi General Pong Krell, he absolutely did not care for his troopers whatsoever. He was willing to sacrifice them just for the goal at hand. He didn't even call them by their nicknames. Like, for example, instead of calling Rex Captain Rex, he called them CT-7567.
Well, yeah, but that's my point. I think, what was his name again? I know who you're talking about, but what was his name again?
Pong Krell?
Pong Krell. Pong Krell's at least honest about it. I disagree with you when it comes to Anakin completely. I mean, how much of a friend can you be with someone if they're enslaved and you use them to kill other people and really just have a lack of care for their specific freedom, or the fact that they're going to their deaths and were specifically created to do this, right? I mean, you can act like you care for them on a local level, but obviously he didn't care enough to free them. He obviously didn't care enough to defend their right not to get slaughtered for a war they didn't start and a war that they weren't a part of, or to stop them from being grown, or to support during the Clone Wars series. There was at least one bill that was pushed by Amidala, and he wasn't on board with it. And the bill was to free the clones, to give them choice. And of course, she was beaten down on that. So I don't think that he cared all that much. I think that he cared maybe on an individual level, and just barely if he did that. They were tools to him, or he would have cared about the slaves in which he interacted with. And in fact, let me give you a good example, and I'll look it up if you need me to, but there was an episode where a clone, same thing technically, was rebelling against the Republic, and the entire point of the episode was someone was sabotaging the base, and you had Anakin, and you had Obi-Wan, you had Rex, and you had who was the other Rex? Obi-Wan.
Cody.
Obi-Wan. You had Cody, right? And they were attempting to figure out who was doing it, and ultimately they caught the clone, and he gave this whole big speech about, you know, the CIS had given him money, but it wasn't about that. It was about the fact that they were all slaves to the Republic in front of both Obi-Wan and Anakin, and neither of them were moved or even cared. I can look up the episode if you need me to.
I actually have it on my document.
Oh, sweet. So I'm sure you can address it. But that's
Yes.
one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons I didn't read it, because I enjoy the natural cause, and plus, you know, you can beat me down and get all of my subscribers, so everybody wins.
Yes, indeed. The episode was Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Season 1, Episode 16, The Hidden Enemy.
Okay.
The clone that you're referring to was named Slick. Ventress offered him coin and all that, but he really didn't care. He just wanted to free his brothers. Anakin said that he was a great disappointment. How could he do this to them? Slick said, only a Jedi would ask that. It's the Jedi who keep my brothers enslaved. We do your bidding. We serve your whim. I just wanted something more.
Okay. So would you agree with me that that was pretty cold and callous of Anakin?
Yeah, considering not just him, but Obi-Wan and Rex and Cody are calling him basically a traitor to his own kind.
Right.
But yeah, in a way, he's actually trying to help his kind gain freedom.
Sure. So can we really say that Anakin is a friend of the clones?
I think he's a friend of like one or two clones, but not the clones in general, like every clone in the army.
Okay, so let's make it real for a second. Let's take it into real life. And if you don't want to answer this, or you don't want to, if it's too close to home, then feel free to let me know and we can move away from it. Okay. Let's go into the South during the time of slavery, right? And you have a plantation owner who owns 150 slaves. No, let's say you have a plantation owner who owns 150 slaves. He has a son that is the arbiter or whatever, keeps everybody working, right? And he befriends and watches out for 2 of the 150 slaves. Would he be a friend of those two individuals, as well as all of the slaves overall?
No.
Okay. Do you think there's a difference between him and Anakin?
I guess when you put it like that, I'm beginning to see where there is little to no difference whatsoever.
Right. And I mean, guys, we'll jump to the comments in just a second, but this is just back and forth. And that was an extreme example. Obviously, I don't think the writers were going for that necessarily, but the writing is what the writing is. And I never really looked at it until I started doing this breakdown. And honestly, it just makes them seem so evil, and the fact that everybody's okay with it, you know? Let's see. Tiberius Africanus says, I don't know if you can really call clones slaves. They were not born. They have no mothers, fathers, family, or history to even be taken away. Their whole purpose was for war. Can you call them slaves? Yeah. I think that you can call them slaves, regardless of how a person is born or who a person is born to. Or if they have a mother and father. I think that once we establish them as an individual, that you could call them slaves. The only argument I think that you could go with that, and George, give me your opinion on this, is to say that they're not actually people. And I'm not saying you agree with that or anything, but if we're going to say that they're not slaves, then we have to say that they aren't people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we can go down that road. What are your thoughts when it comes to that?
I don't agree with that whatsoever. I think they are completely slaves, to be honest. You have Lama Su, the Prime Minister of Kamino, stating that clones can think creatively. You'll find that they are immensely superior to droids, and they're comparing them to another piece of property. They use growth acceleration to speed up their lifetime so they can get out and produce double the time. And they are totally obedient, taking whatever order without question, because they modify their genetic structure to make them less independent than Jango Fett.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, you have the control chip inside their head. That's another story altogether, which would force them to betray the Jedi and shoot them down, like Ki-Adi-Mundi and Aayla Secura.
Right. So yeah, I mean, definitely a portion of their free will has been removed by other means. I'm not a huge fan of the control chips, if I'm being honest. What I thought was more interesting was during the Battlefront game, the first one, during Operation Nightfall, where there was no control chip or anything. They were just giving orders that the Jedi had turned and the Jedi were evil, and so they killed the Jedi. And one of the interesting things to that is because of their mind control, because of their training, They just did it without thinking. And in fact, the Jedi never detected any ill will from them because there never was any ill will. They were so conditioned that it wasn't necessarily a good or evil for them. It was just something that they were to do. And it was, in fact, part of... it was kind of part of the downfall of the Jedi, that they didn't see what was happening to these people, right? And I mean, again, people, if people like the chips, that's fine. I just found the other one more compelling, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I loved playing Battlefront 2, 2005. That is the Journals of the 501st. I thought that story was interesting. I think I've played that game like 10 times. That game was so good.
Yeah, it's too bad they didn't continue to go that route with future iterations.
Battlefront 2!
Yeah, exactly. Nexus8462 says, can we please not ignore that he did kill his brothers to try to attain freedom? In my eyes, he is then no better. I have a different opinion on that. And let me kind of go into that real quick. If you look at the Bajoran Resistance, or the Bajoran, well, not the Bajoran Militia, but the Bajoran Resistance, they killed Bajorans to get to Cardassians because they knew that Cardassians were using Bajorans as human shields. You also had Bajorans that were collaborators and were, at that point, now a part of the machine. They were the enemy. So the question becomes, is it okay to kill those in which may be may be a part of who you want to free in order to free everyone, right? So he did kill some clones, but if he's going to free all of the clones, is that okay, or is that necessary? I think it may be a necessary evil. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that statement, because the Bajorans, like, literally, Kira saw that gold Ducat and like her mom had a relationship and was about ready to kill her mom.
Right.
It's like any means necessary to get this goal achieved.
Right.
If that means killing your own people, your own family. And that's kind of what Slick was in. He didn't care. He wanted all of them free. So in order to free all of them, some needed to be sacrificed along the way.
Right, and that was just my point. So I don't necessarily begrudge him for doing that, simply because, you know, the ends justify the means. And if we say that's wrong, then we have to say almost any resistance group, especially like the Bajoran Militia or the Terrans in the mirror universe of Deep Space Nine, that's wrong as well. So, yeah. Josh Street, would the clones try to kill Anakin if he wasn't Vader? Yeah, I think they would, because they were given the command to... Well, it depends on what is canon and what isn't canon in Star Wars. My understanding is, what is canon is they were ordered to kill every Jedi that they found. There is expanded universe that I don't think is any longer canon that says they were to... Jedi Masters were killed on sight, regardless, full stop. Most all Jedi Knights were to be killed, though you could capture them. Jedi Padawans were to be captured at all costs if they could, unless they showed a significant threat or were about to escape. You might know more on that than me when it comes to canon, but that's at least what I've seen.
In canon, we have the recent Vader comics from 2017 still going on. They still use the clones during this era because it's so close to episode 3. The clones have the inhibitor chip inside their brain, so they are forced to do so. There's an issue, or a couple of issues, I think, where they were trying to hunt down Madame Jocasta Nu, the chief librarian of the Jedi Temple. And when she was finally captured, she told to the shock troopers, "You realize you are serving a Jedi. This Jedi was Anakin Skywalker." All the clones immediately looked at him, and Vader, in order to save his own life, just pushed them all out of the ship. He was willing to sacrifice them for his own life, and they would have turned on him.
That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't read any of the comics or anything. And they are considered solid canon then?
Oh yeah, the Vader comics is canon.
Okay. Well, it's interesting Jocasta didn't get thrown out as well for causing the issues that she did when it comes to that. Um, but yeah, so I mean, that is that's interesting. I think I might have to read those. Anti-Tracker says, "Wow, very cool. This must be your first guest appearance on a YouTube channel." Oh wait, was he on your channel? Were you on Anti-Tracker's channel?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean that's cool. If you wanted to go to like smaller channels, ones that insignificant, and then finally get on to like an e-celebrity, you're stepping up, you're moving up, so that's cool.
We're moving on up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. To the big time. All right, let's see. But yeah, I mean, what's interesting is I don't know why the writers didn't really consider this, because I don't think there's any way out of this box of the Jedi just being evil and getting what they deserved, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question then becomes with the droids. And with the droids, the way it works, they were not in the exact same boat, but there were some droids that met all of the criteria for consciousness and were treated as if they were conscious, right? So, of course, they still had their programming and everything. And then we move into the original wow, I do Star Trek way too much. We move into the original trilogy, where the droids, who we know have consciousness, are treated horrifically by even the good guys. So what are your thoughts when it comes to Anti-Tracker and him thinking that all droids are not people, they're not sentient? How do you feel about that specifically?
I feel like droids in their like infancy of like knowledge, like they're still trying to get through like the first year or so, could be non-sentient, but when you get to like the point of like C-3PO in the prequels, at that point he's accumulated so much data, life experiences, and all that, and then you have Senator Bail Organa telling him to repaint the droid and just wipe his memory.
Right. See you, Pete. Talk to you later, buddy. Yeah, and that was the workaround. And I know this kind of gets to Anti-Tracker, but that really was the workaround for them, is that they would just simply memory wipe every couple of years. And therein comes the other moral question. Give me a quick second.
Mm-hmm.
Therein comes the other moral question, right? If we know after a couple of years they become sentient, then is wiping them morally negative? Is it a bad thing? So if they do become sentient, and you don't allow them to, does that make you a bad person? I'm trying to think of a human example, but...
Oh, I could think of one, but I don't like the example at all. I don't think it fits. But
okay, but I mean, so what do you think on that, though?
I feel like it could be morally compromising if you had to do that. Like, it prevent a new type of life to be realized within this droid.
Right.
I feel like there's something morally wrong about that on a level, but it's not like an absolute terrible thing like some things that the Jedi and Sith have done. Like, it's bad, but it's not on that type of level of bad because it's technically not alive yet.
Sure. I mean, this almost feels like it could go into a pro-life or pro-choice stance. It's like,
that's what I was thinking.
Oh, that's what you were thinking of? Are they really alive?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh.
Yeah, we aren't going down that road. Not in the slightest. Trip, the trippy one, says memory wipes do that. What about Halo and rampant AI? Same thing. Sure. I think you could argue that rampant AIs are such a threat that they need to be deleted, especially when you look at what happens with Cortana. But yeah, the advanced AIs like Cortana and others are definitely, I think they meet all of the requirements of sentience. Jay Wiggs, Star Wars droids are programmed to have a personality for their task. C-3PO has a do not harm human code, for example. Here's my problem with that argument, and Anti-Trekker continues to bring it up. Okay, they're programmed to act like X, but we know that they can go against that programming. What is the difference between a droid who's programmed to do X and can go against that programming, and a human that has a predisposition to do X and can go against that? One was made by one was made by humans. The other was either socially evolved through nature or was made by a higher being. It all seems like the same thing to me, just a different layer. And I definitely jump in here. It's okay to disagree with me if you like. I mean, Anti-Trekker does. He's wrong all the time, so.
No, I was going to let you continue with it. I'm so far agreeing with it.
Okay. See, I'm going to have you on more so that I can just be like, and what are your thoughts, Captain George? And be like, I agree. I think he's right.
I'm a mindless drone. I'm a bot.
See, exactly. That's why I have you on, because you're a bot. Nexus says, C-3PO and R2 had classified data. If they weren't wiped, the enemies can hack their memory and gain classified information. I wonder what episode Clone Wars did that. There was an episode of Clone Wars that actually did that, but more importantly, R2 was never wiped. So if you're going to say that they had this drastic information, then Bale really dropped the ball on that. You know? I'm sorry, go ahead.
The episode he's referring to is Season 1, Episode 6, Downfall of a Droid, where R2 is captured by the Separatists when Anakin's starfighter is destroyed. And the problem is, Anakin's never wiped out R2's memory, so he contains all the strategic information and locations of the Republic's assets.
Right. Well, and I wasn't even talking about that one. I was talking about where you had the pirate, the blue guy, I forget his name, that had his hat. And he actually captured both C-3PO and R2-D2. And I forget the episode.
Cad Bane.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Cad Bane. He captured them, got some information, and then wiped their memories. And of course, Anakin, because he's an idiot, didn't really think twice about it when they were like, "Well, we're not sure what happened today." And so, I mean, they constantly kept them without being wiped. And I know that you have Mace Windu, who got all up in his face, like, you didn't wipe his memory? I mean, don't even get on to me. There were droids everywhere that would leave Republic ships without being wiped. In fact, there was an entire group of droids that were sent out as a task force that weren't wiped and didn't have vital information removed. So don't even... Anyway.
The episode you were referring to with Cad Bane kidnapping C-3PO and R2 is Season 3, Episode 8, Evil Plans of the Clone Wars.
Exactly. By the way, we got Raw666. You might be wondering why Raw666 has a special icon and it is green. That is because he is a sponsor of the channel. If you'd like to be a sponsor of the channel and you are watching from a computer, hit the sponsor button up there. Helps out the channel, and you get to use fancy icons of all sorts. So does R2-D2, but has killed in protecting his friend. That was from a long time ago. I kept it there. I think we're talking about how they went against their own programming and things like that. Domehammer brings up a good question too. General Grievous isn't a droid but a cyborg. He became more droid than anything else. I guess maybe he is a cyborg. I guess you couldn't use him as an example.
Yeah, because he has organic tissue inside him. That's the reason why he died in Episode 3.
Right.
Because everyone shot the organic tissue within it and just literally exploded.
Right. By the way, Michael Leith bringing up some good points. There's 72 people watching and only 33 likes. Come on, are you scared? Look, the like button is more scared of you than you are of it. If you stroke it, just hit it, just give it a little tap, and it'll love you forever. Just pet it. Just pet it. Maybe the droid union wouldn't allow memory wipes, says Darth Maul. Maul spelled M-A-L-L. That's clever. The droid union? What's he talking about there? Do you remember?
The Techno Union? Is that what he's referring to?
I don't know. Darth Maul, what are you talking about when you say droid union? Unless he's making a joke, just saying they unionized or something like that. Daniel's Hot Topic. Lord, did you see that Disney added a new Sith Lord to the Star Wars canon? I think he will be in the new Star Wars live-action TV series. His name is Darth Atrius. Are you messing with me, or did they actually do that? Let's look up Darth Atrius.
And the searching begins.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, look. There is a Darth Atrius. New Sith Lord Atrius added to Star Wars canon. Intriguing. I did not know that. No. Oh, look. They gave him that stupid lightsaber, though. How clever is that?
What lightsaber?
The one with the guards. That comes out both ways. It looks like he... Or maybe not. You know the one Kylo Ren has.
Yeah, the cross guard.
Yeah, the cross guard. Yeah. Anyway, Jonathan Medina, the difference, as I see it, is that a droid retains its skills when it's wiped. There's no guarantee that a person whose memory was erased would retain anything of themselves from before. How does that make it different? How does that change anything? Just because they might keep a base understanding or system, I don't understand how that works. Anthony Dukes, maybe Lore can teach Anti-Trekker proper lighting techniques for live streaming. Hey, anytime a smaller YouTuber, one who hasn't really figured out how to become famous like me on YouTube, wants help, I'm more than happy to help him out. So, Anti-Trekker, if you ever need any help, like working with your camera or working with, like... I know one of your weak spots is like special effects and stuff like that. Just let me know, buddy. I'm here for you. Captain George, do you know the irony in that?
Yeah, the special effects part.
Yeah. He has a degree in I forget exactly what's called. Yeah, he has a degree in special effects. And animation.
I thought you were referring to the animations.
Like no, he has a degree when it comes to doing all of this.
Wow.
Jason Powell helping out the channel, of course, saying, "What's up, Lore Reloaded and Captain George?" Hold on for a second.
What is on your face? Is that a disguise?
Well, what's up with me? I think there's a plane flying over, so does that count?
That does, in fact, count. That does, in fact, count. But yeah, so thanks, Jason, so much. It really helps out the channel. You rock, good sir. But yeah, I don't know. I think, didn't they have the ability to wipe clones' memories? I kind of feel like that came up.
I don't think it came up in the Clone Wars.
I thought it did in the series. Maybe I'm wrong, because remember one of the clones went AWOL and the chip malfunctioned, right? We were talking about that, where he was, where they were willing to listen to him. Well, maybe they didn't wipe his mind. I thought they tried.
No, they tried to remove the inhibitor chip inside his brain. That was Tup. His inhibitor chip malfunctioned. Fives removed his, and they drugged him to make him look like he was insane.
Gotcha.
But he retained all memory still.
Right. Laughable Larry, no, you rock, sir. You and Captain George rock. So Lore thinks that Star Wars droids are sentient. Let's talk about it. Are Star Wars droids sentient? The first question I'm going to ask you is, would we agree that the 3 requirements in the measure of a man are good requirements for establishing if something is sentient? And let's see, who just asked that? So my question would be to Jwigs. Do you, and whoever, so let's do this. In Measure of a Man, they had 3 different establishments, which was, let's see. What was it, Captain George? Do you remember? It was Are they self-aware?
Yeah, that was one of them.
Are they self-aware? What were the other two? That's why I have you on, Captain George.
You picked the wrong man.
Picked the wrong guy for that. Measure of a man. Requirements for humanity. You guys help me out in the chat. So they had to be self-aware. They also had to well, self-aware handles that. God, now I'm gonna have to look it up. So
I think one of them was the ability to learn and grow.
yeah. Let's see. Measure of a man. Anti-tracker, you're here. You tell me. What were the 3 requirements that they had to do? Actually, I guess I could play it, get the channel shut down, so why not do that, right?
Yeah, why not?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, whoever. They shut it down once before, so why not again? Anti-tracker, I'm going to wait on you. You tell me. You give me the 3 steps of what it is. And now, while we're looking up those 3 steps, and if you need me to tell you, I can, but do we agree? Trip, you got to go. Thanks for coming by. Self-aware, learn and grow, and something else? Self-aware? That doesn't make any sense. Wish to better themselves.
Self-aware, I said.
Yeah, self-aware, we already said that. Learn and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know what the second one is. I'll look it up. While I'm looking that up,
Intelligence, self-awareness, and consciousness.
There we go. So,
said.
do you agree that in Measure of a Man, that is how you can determine what sentience is? Press 1 if you would agree, or press 2 if you would disagree.
I'm going to copy and paste that while I can.
Yeah, I should do that too.
There, I put it in our chat.
Man, I don't even know why people like this channel. It's like... That's why I do voiceovers and script everything, because I can't remember stuff off the top of my head.
So beautiful, isn't it? Just so beautiful.
Yeah, voiceovers. Oh God, makes me look intelligent when I'm not. But yeah, so one if you would agree, 2 if you would disagree. And if we have a majority that agree, and Jay Wiggs, I'm going to look to you specifically. But if we agree with that, let's take those measurements against the droids in Star Wars. I feel like I have a lisp. Do you hear a lisp when I'm talking?
Not that I've picked up on,
Okay.
but believe it. Now that you mention it, I might.
Yeah, now I'm going to. You're going to notice it everywhere. I probably shouldn't have pointed it out. No one would know. By the way, using that name, Admiral Saval, is a good way to get banned if you're calling me Jimmy. I hate that name. I don't... Laughable Larry, I don't know why I like this channel, but I keep coming back. There was, because I'm doing a battle tech, and I'm talking about hegemony, and I keep saying it different ways, because no matter how I say it, everyone gets mad. And someone referred to me as a girlfriend that you hate, but... is so good that you have to come back to her. Because they like everything else, but they know I'm doing that because it pisses them off. I'm on a phone call. What are we voting for? We're voting for if you should have a channel or not. So 1, if you shouldn't have a channel. 2, no. Yeah, 1 if you shouldn't have a channel. 2 if you should.
Well, great. I guess we ain't going to talk about it then.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so J-Wigs I'm not seeing. Most people are doing 1, so that's what we're going to go with, unless you have an issue with it, Captain George.
No, I personally believe that's a fair requirement. Besides, how are we supposed to be able to tell if someone is sentient when we can't even... Like, we're the only ones aware that we are sentient. Right. Everyone else could be a bunch of robots for all we know.
And I mean, I would argue, are we even sentient? But I think that's a different... do we even have free will? I don't necessarily want to get into it. If you want to comment to it, you can. But I think that humans overall, we're part nature, part nurture. And depending on where you grow up and what you've gone through and who your genetic parents are, is going to determine everything about your life. And that ultimately, if we were able to pin it down, you could exactly tell what a person would do. I don't want to get into that ball of wax, but I'm just saying I somewhat question free will anyway. But anyway, that doesn't matter. All right, so when we're getting into this, hashtag not all droids, obviously. I think that most of the B units, the B1s, especially the first ones, don't necessarily have the sentience that we're talking about. Even if they did, I'm sure there's an example of a droid that doesn't. So obviously not all droids. However, can we find at least one droid that is intelligent, that is self-aware, and that has a consciousness? Most all... Now, so, I mean, when we look up the definition of intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. Intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills, the collection of information of military or political value. Most all droids can do that. We can agree, right?
Yes, like you can have a B unit battle, well, late B unit battle droid, that is, because the earlier ones were hooked up to a centralized computer within the looser Hulk.
Right.
But the later ones had their own thing built inside them. They applied military strategy that they were taught somewhat.
Right.
They were not great at it all, but let's say 3PO, for example. He knows over 4,000, I think, languages within the Star Wars universe.
Right. So, I mean, I think that we can at least say that there are some, and especially the more advanced droids, the commander droids. I forget what they were called, but they tactical droids, which rivaled, some of them rivaled clones. So at least the tactical droids we know for sure. So we have intelligence. Now, the next one we'd have to say is self-awareness. So let's take a look at what self-awareness is. Conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. You know what's funny? Is it says I have to sign in to talk in the chat. That always scares me, because the last time it told me to sign in, they shut down my channel. But yeah, so our droids, are there any droids that are self-aware? I think there are. I think C-3PO and R2-D2 are an example that would be self-aware. They're aware of where they are. They have knowledge of their own character. I think they have feelings and motives. I think you see motives with I think you see feelings with C-3PO when he's scared that R2-D2 is dead. He wants to give his own parts, right? R2-D2 clearly has motives when he goes and tries to find Obi-Wan, or when he like runs away from Luke after they take off the restraining bolt, and in Clone Wars all the time. He has motives. And then look at the B1s. The B1s clearly have feelings, because it goes back to the Jedi being these evil people, because these clones are talking about how they're going to die, or how they're scared, and how they don't want to die. There are many comedic points where they're like, please don't kill me, or I don't want to die, or it's not going to matter.
I just got promoted.
Who got promoted?
No, one of the battle droids.
Oh, I just got promoted. Yeah,
I just got promoted.
Yeah, because in one of those scenes, his commander is killed, and then he's like, I just got promoted, and then he gets killed. I mean, it's funny, but it's evil as hell. And so I think that we can show that they have self-awareness. I mean, and I'll leave it to the chat, and George, if you want to talk about it, we can, but I don't think that that's arguable.
What's arguable? The consciousness part?
Yeah.
Yeah,
self-awareness.
Like Picard's self-awareness?
Yeah.
Well, Picard said he is aware of what room he's in, what he's doing, what he desires. 3PO understood he desired an oil bath in episode 4.
Sure.
The battle droid in the Ryloth arc realized he had the worst job in the droid army. And
Right.
they understand that like they just got promoted, or they're about to be destroyed to a point where they won't be able to come back.
Right.
So I think that's pretty self-aware enough.
Jay Wiggs says, advanced AI can mimic emotions and respond like they have feelings. Data can be an example of a base Star Wars droid model awareness. R2-D2 C-3PO programmed motives, emotions to relate to battle. So here's my thing about that, Jay Wiggs. Here's my problem with what you're saying here. So are humans. One of two things happened, and both of them leads to the same conclusion. Either we are the result of hundreds of thousands to millions of years of evolution where we have been changed and modified through both nature and nurture to respond in certain ways. It is an organic, longer process that ultimately leads to us being here, to me having a reaction. When my ancestors looked into the forest and they saw the grass move, the ones that were scared of that lived longer than the ones that weren't. And ultimately that leads up to me not walking in front of a car. Or the other one, an almighty power created me with this programming already here. The difference between me and a droid, between me and what you just said, is that I'm organic and they're not. They were created by me. They're lesser because they were created by humans, in my opinion.
Well, that's not even fair either. Our new life is even created by humans itself, and new kids created by humans as well. It's just the process is different, and all you end up is with either organic flesh or a metal chassis.
Right. Right, and that's my point. I think that you're looking at how they were created and what they originally were. It's a part of their programming. Well, they go against their programming, and we've proved that. We proved that with C-3PO. We've proved that with R2-D2, and there are plenty of Clone Wars examples that we can prove it with as well. Well, that was a part of their. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There was a droid in Rebels that was an Imperial protocol droid.
Right.
And
yeah. Exactly.
He was taken by the Rebels, and he served the Rebels. His original programming was to be a inventory, unit for one of the shuttles that they were on.
Right.
And they just took him along with him, and he became part of the rebellion.
He chose to go against his. He wasn't reprogrammed. I know what you're talking about. He chose to go against the Imperials of his own accord. And if you're just going to say, well, that was a part of their programming, you can say the same thing for humans. Anti-Trekker. The only YouTuber so awesome that Google put my avatar in the chat for all to use. Or another way of looking at that Anti-Trekker is you looked at that and you said, you know what? That's going to be my avatar. When I think of everything I do, it's that.
Yeah, that's close to the Delta Shield. I'll use that.
That's close to the Delta Shield. I'm going to use that now. Every time. I'm going to use that for Anti-Trekker. Every time I'm putting him down, it's like he just got confused and he thought it was the Delta Shield. Oh, that's hilarious.
No, I think that's literally how he described it in one of his live streams. He's like, I want something similar to the Delta Shield.
Oh,
so I just decided it was a pile of poop, so I had my son draw a pile of poop, and there I am.
That's awesome. Hybrid Jack, the difference between you and a droid lore is that you are a fleshy meatbag. Just ask HK. Seriously, though, I think the droids can be sentient and alive in Star Wars. Well, I do too. I mean, because the problem people are having here is we're sitting here proving that they're self-aware. We're proving that they had intelligence. And now all we have to do is prove that they have consciousness to even the smallest degree, and we've met all those requirements. And if you don't like those requirements, then I'm going to need to know what you require for a person to be sentient, or for a thing to be sentient. The problem most people have, and I don't mean this is going to come off in a negative way, and I don't necessarily mean it this way, and this word may be too strong, and if it is, let me know. But there's a bigotry there, and that's and again, I don't mean it to be like attacking, but it feels like anyone who agrees that they can meet all three of these requirements, but say, well, it's only programming because they're droids, it's a bigoted statement. And I hate using that word because I don't necessarily. It's just fiction, right? We're just having a conversation here, but it's the best way to describe it that I can come up with. Because you're only looking at what they are, and there's no other reason to not have the same comparison. Let's see. Anti-Trekker associating himself with the most generic YouTube image speaks volumes. What? Says Cyborg. Watch Lore and Captain George or Star Trek 6. What to watch?
Us.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, who would watch Star Trek 6? That's the one I think it is. Star Trek 6. The Undiscovered Country. Well, I mean, that's a good one, but I mean, you can always watch us and then them.
Yeah, like I think it's on Hulu. Just go to Hulu and watch it there. Or let's face it, it's the internet.
Exactly.
You have a millennia of other ways to obtain that. Not that we're promoting it. We're just stating a fact.
Shadow Wolf. But one of the requirements of sentience is that they need to be able to reproduce. We know droids could build other droids, but is it still reproduction? Why isn't that reproduction? Again, it's just done different than how you do it. Cells reproduce. They don't reproduce the same way we do. Is that still reproduction? I don't even know that I agree that reproduction is a requirement of sentience. I could be talked into that, but I'm not completely sure that I agree with it.
Reproduction?
Yeah.
Well, when you look at it, like, it takes a part of us to build it. So technically, for a droid, it takes their arm to build it. It's just a different part of what we're doing to build something upward and progressing it forward to be something new.
Well, but is reproduction a requirement of sentience?
All it takes
1 second.
is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day.
Man, that it was the Bad Day Batman one. That is so apt to my last 5 years. Anyway, but do you think reproduction is a requirement of sentience? Well, hold on. I'm sorry. Raw666, I think droids were not considered sentient in Star Wars, for it would mean a loss of cheap labor. It was why clones' rights were brushed aside by the Senate and why it was so easy for the Empire to allow slavery. I agree with that, definitively. I don't think that they considered droids or clones to be actual people. And I don't think they considered it to be, for them to be slaves. Droids you have a better argument for than people. But I think they looked at them both similar. And I do think that it is, I do think that that did allow for slavery of definitive sentience, like the Wookiees and things like that. So, just because they didn't consider it slaves doesn't mean it's not. And by the way, guys, it looks like you are getting a little bit, everybody's getting a little bit heated. Let's just relax and know that we're more talking about fiction than anything else. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? That they didn't consider them human, they didn't consider them slaves, they didn't consider them humans or anything. As well as reproduction as a requirement for sentience, Captain George.
I think it should be probably rephrased to the ability to reproduce, because
Sure.
someone could say a monk doesn't reproduce, so does that make him sentient? Or a nun doesn't reproduce, does it make her sentient? And all that. That might need to be swapped, but I don't believe that either.
Right.
But as far as them not considering droids or clones to be sentient and worthy enough of the Republic's anti-slave laws, as mentioned in episode 1. Yes, I know, you guys hate episode 1, but it did add that to the debate. But as far as the Wookiees did, I do believe, like, senators like Mon Mothma and Bail Organa were opposed to that, if they were not even saying that out loud, because let's face it, it's the Emperor. If you say something out loud, Palpatine could get someone to kill you. It's like the Nazi regime with Hitler and the Gestapo.
Right. By the way, giving a shout out to Marla, saying what's going on. Yeah, I don't disagree at all. It's an interesting topic too. You know, I don't necessarily think that there is a right or wrong when it comes to that. I like people who say that the people who disagree with us, I don't necessarily think they're wrong. Like when Anti-Trekker thinks that they're just programmed or whatever, it's just an interesting conversation, and I don't want people to get too mad about it. The one thing I would say is that man, I don't even know if I want to go here because you guys are getting pretty hostile in the chat. All right, I'm gonna try it. If you guys get too hostile or this continues to go political or anything like that, then we'll shut it down. In the real world's history, people who were slaves were not considered people. The same way the clones weren't. And that doesn't justify it or make it right. Why should it be different in the Star Wars universe? You could say it's a different society, but we can still look at it, you know?
Yeah, but I also feel like that society is somewhat based on our own as well, so
Yeah.
it can still be compared to. Like, we can take the Senate, for example. We could see, oh, this is bits of British Parliament or U.S. government, and just take that in there as like, oh, that's similar to real life society, so why can't we just judge it on our own?
Right. Raw666 on the Star Wars issue. Do you think not galactic government works in Star Wars is due to the fact? Do you think galactic governments don't work due to the fact that they only push for one single government without rivals and a sign it's the end of their civilization? I think that's what you're trying to say, Raw666, and I think I could agree with that mostly. No. Yeah, I think that's why the democracies don't work in Star Wars. I think that's a good idea. That's a good question. Because when you look at the Old Republic, they weren't willing to stand for the independent states, right? The Confederacy. And then the New Republic, for all intents and purposes, made the Empire useless. They stripped everything away from them, which ultimately, I think, and caused the Empire to subvert them. I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts, George?
On the democracy not working in Star Wars?
Because they're not willing to work with because they're not willing to play nice with other governments.
Yeah, like you could have like the Confederacy, for an example. They could not stand the idea of someone leaving the Republic because it hasn't happened for so many years. It's
Right.
unheard of. It's preposterous. It's blasphemy.
Right.
How dare they leave our government?
Exactly.
We're the elite core worlds. How dare they leave?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like when you think about it, Firefly, where you had the core worlds not liking the fact that the outer worlds wanted to just exist on their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea. Yeah, because I don't think democracies work in Star Wars at all, and that may be why. Because every time we've seen a democracy, it falls. Every one of them.
The Galactic Republic, the New Republic.
Right.
Meanwhile, like the Empire achieved so much within a short amount of time. It destroyed the Separatist strongholds. It brought into to a lot of piracy. For example, it eliminated the Onaka gang.
Right.
And then you have, it could be better, I suppose. Like you could choose not to enslave the Wookiees. You can show a little bit of like a mercy to some of those worlds. Like the reason why Mon Mothma left the Galactic Senate and they just blasted Palpatine in public was because of the Antar atrocities, which was basically a downright murder of a ton of people.
Right.
Like, if they were a little bit more merciful, I think people would have allowed the Empire because it was under one form, like as just one leader, one united vision on how to restore the galaxy to peace and prosperity. And for the most part, Palpatine did achieve that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, when you look at the expanded universe, or what's considered canon now, as well as just the what's inferred through the movies, Palpatine was a genius. He created an issue. He created all kinds of problems and a lot of suffering and a lot of pain, and then he comes in with the Empire and he fixes that. And as long as you bow and kiss the ring, you're fine. The core worlds, for sure, are taken care of. Outer Rim, not as much, but they're left alone as long as they're willing. I mean, it's basically Rome. As long as you're willing to do Pax Romana and not incur the wrath of Rome, everything's great. And so, and you stop all of this pain and suffering and everything. So, I mean, the Empire looked like a hero for a long time. Yeah. I mean, that's some good points. Hybrid Jack, going back to the sentience reproduction. I don't think reproduction is a requirement of sentience. And this is a great point to that. Hybrid Jack, if reproduction is a part of sentience, then what? Females or males that biologically can't reproduce aren't sentient? I don't think anyone would agree with that. Hybrid Jack, I'm with you. I'm not the one saying that. We're just discussing it because other people bring it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a good point. I think people might say, well, special exception, but again, it all comes back to being human. People don't think anything that's not human is sentient, and I just don't agree with that. Raw666, did he create the issues and solutions, or was it previous Sith Lords as his original plan seemed to fail? No, he created the Civil War. He created the CIS. He worked in the background to cause the corruption that we see in the Old Republic. He did most all of that, unless there's something I'm missing in the comics, so you might know better than me, Captain George.
No, I can actually name something from the Clone Wars that he instigated himself.
Sure.
The Separatists put Rush Clovis in charge of the banks. The Separatists invaded the Scipio in order to wipe out all their debts and make sure the Republic loses all of its funding. So in response, the Republic needs to invade to make sure they have their funding. Thus, all the banks being placed in the hands of the Supreme Chancellor, aka Palpatine.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. He worked consistently in the background. Man, I felt so bad for the guy on that. I forget his name, but the dude who took the fall.
Rush Clovis.
Yeah, I felt so bad for him. It was good. It was well written because he was a villain ultimately, and then he just kept getting further and further down that rabbit hole.
A very tragic villain.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, we'll probably be ending it at we'll probably be ending it sometime soon. But did you guys have anything else you wanted to add? Was Palpatine instrumental in Dooku's views? Was he groomed? Yeah, I think Palpatine was the person that turned Dooku, that ultimately made him evil. I would say, at least it seems like that to me.
For the most part, what turned Dooku from exiled Jedi to Sith, yeah, that was Sidious, but Dooku also saw the corruption within the Galactic Senate, even though some of that was even produced by Palpatine himself. But he saw the corruption within the Senate, the Jedi Order not doing nothing to maintain peace and security throughout the galaxy, and Dooku had enough of it, so he left, went to exile, and reclaimed his title of Count of Serenu, to where Palpatine then persuaded him and dragged him further down the rabbit hole of being the Sith.
Right. Admiral O.F. Doom. I'm not sure that Star Wars democracies don't work. I think it's more that they are so blinded by the ideas they have, they don't see when the wrecking ball comes in to destroy them. Well, that's the point. They don't work because they are so blinded by the ideas that they have that they don't see the wrecking ball that comes to destroy them. Even if you look at it like that, they don't work because of that. I don't know what sentient starship I'm going to make for you, but I will make one. Do not worry. Enderman of Doom.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I see it more like a... the problem with the democracy is not that they are so tunnel vision to the point where they can't see the wrecking ball. I see, like, the problem with that is you have a ton of people within the Galactic Senate, for example, let's say the Republic. You have a ton of people, and most of those people are looking out for their own self-interest. They don't care what happens for as long as they, their family, or their planet prospers.
Right.
So if they're willing to destroy another planet's, chance of survival for their own benefit and gain, they're willing to do it. But at that point, you're also asking for the wrecking ball to hit you as well.
Well, and the thing is, I just don't think Lucas likes democracies, and I just don't think Kathleen Kennedy knows how to write a better story. It's not only that, if it becomes so large, it ultimately becomes corrupted by people who want to be authoritarian. And I think we see that story happen twice. We see it in the Old Republic and then in the expanded universe of the New Republic. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Darth Maul asks, how is the Empire a better version of the Federation? Why would I say that's better, Red Snopia? You're going to let me answer that. I don't. Captain George, do you know why the Empire would be a better version of the Federation? They defend themselves, I guess, would be the one thing that I say. They make warships.
Yeah, they actually have the ability to maintain peace and order for the galaxy.
Right. I mean, beyond that, I don't know that they are better. In fact, I find them to be incredibly similar in a lot of ways.
Sorry for my poor Palpatine, by the way.
Your poor.
Yeah, that was just my Palpatine.
All right, so I think we're going to end it there. If you guys haven't checked him out, check out Captain George. Link in the description below. Guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe.
Anti-Tracker, that is true. Yes.
It looks like the Anti-Tracker is live now. So click the link right there. Go check him out if you haven't. And I think that's going to do it. So we are going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded.